But I think, and people forget, in Japan right now, the biggest series, some of the biggest series, are coming from an online-only portal called Shonen Jump Plus. Kaiju number 8, Spy Family, which is probably the biggest hit right now in anime and manga. Spy Family. These are series that are coming from online. They're not in a magazine. They're on the web. And so I raised that because these are traditional looking comics, aka manga. They're not done in the webtoon format, and they're destroying it right now. They're super popular. So I still really don't know if webtoon is the future.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Saturday Roundtable show. My name is Jackie and I'm the host. Today we're going to have some really interesting topics. We're going to be covering just the latest activity going on with webtoons and how that kind of connects to all of the awesome anime and manga content coming out. And then we're also going to be hitting all of the Netflix anime that is going to be coming out as well. So we have our founder and CEO today. He's going to be kind of hosting this episode, kind of giving me a breakdown for how to run future episodes. So we have Frederick L. Jones, and then we have Val Seren Liberty. She is one of our manga artists for Saturday Brunch. Her manga is called Otherworldly Travel Agency. And then we have a new guest, Fred Torninger. I believe both of these ladies haven't been on our Saturday and Roundtable show yet, so they're new to the show, so give them a big round of applause. Fred Torninger is the manga creator, also in Saturday Brunch. She has made Gun Healed. Both of these are very awesome series. I love the characters and the story, so you guys check them out, follow these artists. But with that being said, let's go ahead and let's get started with the show. Fred, go ahead, take it away.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I am really excited to be here. It's my first time on Roundtable as well. I think we did the March Art Madness stuff, but or Summer Manga.
Summer Manga.
But I hope you guys tune in for these shows. Jackie, of course, is wonderful, and she does these things. She's so passionate about Saturday AM and comics and the people who make them. So, this show is going to be a really fun show, I think, over time. I think you guys can really get into this with Jackie and the people that she's able to get, like these wonderful guests we have here today. Plus, I mean, if you guys are watching this, obviously, no one pulls off sunglasses like Jackie. Jackie wears sunglasses like she's from the Batman 1966 TV show.
Yes. Yes, I have to have something to mask my insecurities, so these glasses are perfect. So
hey, well, you have no reason to be insecure. You are fantastic. Well, folks, obviously, as you guys know, Roundtable is a place where we just, collect a few of our amazing people from our community, and we touch on a couple of topics. This is very similar to what you guys see on a lot of YouTube shows, but with this one, I heard a great line recently about, I'm a big fan of sports, and the NBA, which is the National Basketball Association, just ended. They had their finals, and the Golden State Warriors won their 4th national title. And none of that's relevant, except for the fact that one of their players, who was one of their best players, he got a lot of flack in the series, these finals, which is like the best out of 7 games, because he didn't play as well in a couple of games. And then right after the game, ended, he has a podcast that he does, a video podcast, and it's doing very successful. And he got a lot of flack when the games were not good because they were like, well, you're spending too much time worried about your podcast. And he had a great line. He said, this is new media. And the whole thing about new media is that, for years, for generations, when we've heard things like sports discussed on TV, it was always from people who never played. Those are the people who were guiding the conversation, that were doing all the, all the conversation about what this is and what that is and what this player is doing, what this player is thinking, when they're not the people out there shooting the ball, running for the football, kicking the goal in soccer. They're not the people doing those things. And he's like, this is new media. New media, everyone is empowered, and therefore you actually have a chance to talk about basketball, in his case, from the people who actually play basketball now while it's happening. And so I think, with Roundtable, I think one of the things that I hope the show can be is, talking about some things that you guys may see on your news feeds from various websites like IGN and, comic book resources and so on and so forth, but to provide a sense of perspective on that from people who actually make this type of content, like to get them to actually give their thoughts on stuff. And we'll see how it goes. But so far, I've thoroughly enjoyed watching Jackie and the folks that she's assembled touch on topics. And so I think tonight, what I wanted to do is I wanted to touch on just two topics that I thought were really interesting, because I think they point to the future of where entertainment's going. Perhaps they might not. And I want to get these lovely ladies' perspectives on that. So the first one we're going to talk about is Netflix. And Netflix, of course, we all know, is not only the biggest streaming service in the world. They have well over 100 million subscribers, but they out of 100 countries even. But they recently, of course, were in the news because they suffered a loss in their stock price, because for the first time in 10 years, they suffered a loss of subscribers. So obviously, they're a business. They make great content because they have a lot of subscribers, and they invest a lot of money in that. The minute that they started losing subscribers, which was bound to happen, you've got Disney Plus, you've got Peacock, you've got Crunchyroll, you've got all these services that people can subscribe to. Eventually, you're not going to subscribe to all of them, especially if the economy gets out of whack like it's doing now. So they had a loss for the first time, and that meant they had to cut back on a lot of programs. One area that they recently announced a lot of investments in was animation. So they've been doing a really, I would say a good job of grabbing successful properties in anime like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and Saint Seiya, the classic Saint Seiya show, Beastars, and a host of series. But this year, in fact, last week, they announced a number of shows, movies, and in particular for this panel, anime. Some of the anime they announced are Cyberpunk Edge Runners, which is based on the video game. In fact, I think I can share my screen here with you guys. Not that people will be able to see it. Maybe Jack will probably put like cool graphics on the screen and stuff. But so here's Netflix, and so they announced Cyberpunk Edge Runners, The Dragon Prince, which is that a new show? Anyway, we'll talk about it in a minute. Love, Death, and Robots, Sonnet Prime, The Cuphead Show. They had a few more. They had some other ones. They had like some one animated thing. We're just not gonna find it. But why don't we start off first with just you guys giving your thoughts on Netflix and their kind of investment in animation over the past year and in the future. Have you guys liked what you've seen? Are you excited about what's to come? Why don't we start with, and folks, for the purposes of this meeting, the purpose of this episode, we're going to do what only makes sense. And it says, my name is Fred, and this young woman's name is Fred. We're going to just give a simple breakdown to make it easier. So she will be Fred 2, because there's only Fred 1, and that's me. So Fred 2, Fred 2, give me your thoughts on Netflix, because obviously you're in Denmark. What's your thought on Netflix? Did you watch it?
I do. I have it. I guess we definitely have probably not as many shows on Netflix that we can watch as in USA, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But probably, at least, of course, the original stuff is available to us. So I feel like they've already come out with a lot of animation, and especially Netflix anime. and some of it is like some of it's good, like the shows that we know, like JoJo and stuff like Great Pretender. But a lot of it also seems kind of generic. There's like the stuff as the shoes, the Greek mythology thing, and the Witcher anime, which I didn't
Right.
hear about, and it doesn't look very interesting to me. So I'm wondering if they're sort of churning out products, uh, and maybe the quality is suffering a bit. I don't know.
That's interesting that you weren't into Witcher. I think I thought everyone in Europe loved The Witcher, but like I know one of our colleagues, Christina Andebach's a big fan of that. But fair enough on Witcher. But I would say that they had probably one of the best animations of the past couple of years last year with Arcane. So clearly they're getting some stuff right. I think we would all agree Arcane was amazing. I hope. I don't know. Let's go to you, Val. What do you make of this?
I was actually, I was gonna say, I agree with Red too, with some aspect of that. It does sometimes feel like they play a lot with trial and error, but at the same time, I don't see that necessarily as a bad thing because they're giving all these opportunities for new animation projects, hiring animators, giving them the chance, get a job. But some of these series, while some of them may flop, you never know until you give it a shot. Like for example, the cyberpunk edge runner anime, it's being handled by Studio Trigger. It has the same director as Kill la Kill. I feel like that has a lot of potential, and maybe the next anime that comes after it might not be as successful, but the fact that they're even taking a chance to acquire all of these animes and creating entirely new series, I feel like they're taking it in a direction that really allows anime, to show up in the spotlight even more.
That's a really good point. I think, obviously, Netflix is a multi-billion-dollar company. They're a Silicon Valley company, and they invest billions into producing content for their streaming service. And so, you're right. I mean, they obviously, whether the anime is good or not, one would hope, right, that they are improving conditions for animators, which if you've read articles recently, more and more has come out about how difficult it is to succeed as an animator in Japan. It's just it's low pay, lots of hours. So that's a good point. I don't know if they're elevating animation and getting more people hired and more people able to produce content, more jobs for people who maybe wouldn't have had those opportunities in the past without a Netflix. But that is one positive thing, perhaps, that they're doing. Jackie, what do you make of this? I know you were a big fan of Cyberpunk, or you seem interested in Cyberpunk as an anime.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited for the Cyberpunk anime coming out. I've watched people play a little bit of the video game, and it's been something that they've announced and they've wanted to do for several years now. And I'm really excited it's finally coming out this year on Netflix. But it's the same. I feel the same way as Fred number two and Val. um, I I feel like there's some heavy hitters on Netflix, some really good anime like Beastars and BNA, and I liked Cannon Busters too. But there's also a lot of anime that doesn't stand out and it doesn't really look too interesting. And if you do give it a chance and you watch it, your thoughts on that are kind of confirmed. So yeah, it does have some. Netflix does have some good shows and then some that aren't so good. So I think there's potential there for Netflix to expand and either collect more manga anime licenses from Japan or make their own. I think at this point, everyone's trying to make their own anime and manga because it's getting harder and harder to, get content from Japan. So we'll see. I mean, Sony's making a new One Punch Man movie, a live action movie. Sony has just acquired Crunchyroll. So, they're trying
Mhm.
to gain a big space in this whole, anime competition. So, it's interesting. I guess we'll see, what happens.
So, out of curiosity, how many of you guys actually subscribe to Netflix?
I do.
I do.
So Val does.
I sort of do by association.
Fred. So the Freds use it from friends and family. But yeah, I think that because they're cracking down on that password sharing. But I think that I agree with what all you guys are saying. I think by and large, I think Netflix is a positive force. I think if you looked at the series I was scrolling through here, I mean, you've got a combination of 3D animated stuff. We can debate whether or not 3D in TV shows is very effective. You've obviously got traditional animation. You've got stuff based on old manga like Bastard. You got stuff based on video games like Cyberpunk. You got Army of the Dead, which is a franchise they had as a live action movie a couple of months ago. So I mean, you're just getting a lot of content there. I think that's really interesting and really exciting. Do I know? Have I watched a lot of it? No, I tend to stick to one or two series at a time just because I just don't have that much time. But from what I've heard, again, I think most people what I've talked to have really gotten into Netflix anime. Would they give up Crunchyroll for it? I don't know. But I have not really heard a lot of negative things about Netflix, except for the fact that for some series they'll release it all at one time, and part of anime's excitement is being able to go week to week and see what's happening each week. People obviously will binge stuff if they haven't seen it, but some people like just anime being weekly, and they like watching it weekly so that they can get part of the whole community and culture of people talking about each episode when it comes out. So there's that, but yeah, I think Netflix is doing interesting. One thing I noticed here is that a lot of the name Powerhouse Animation is the studio that did the He-Man. They're an American studio, and they did He-Man. They did Saus Manos or something like that. Saus Manos. They did another Castlevania. They did Castlevania. So I'm seeing here they're doing a lot of series here for Netflix. They must have really blown up doing work for Netflix. That's kind of interesting. So, okay. So does anyone else have anything else you want to add before we move on?
Well, I know that
No,
they're... Oh.
Oh.
Well, I was going to say, let me ask this. Let me ask this question. Fred, too, if Netflix said they wanted to make an anime of Gunhill, would you be excited, or would you like, no, I really want it to be on Disney Plus, or I want it to be on Crunchyroll? How would you feel about that?
I've heard that Netflix want to, they want to keep the rights to the stuff that they show. So I wouldn't want to be on Netflix if that was the case. Like I wouldn't give over the rights.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think. I mean, obviously they don't own the rights to Sonic, right? But I mean, I think what you mean is that the show would be exclusive to their platform, right? Well, the show would be exclusive to their platform, I guess, is the issue here, and you would have an issue with that.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely. I wouldn't say yes immediately, but it would be cool. It would certainly be an opportunity.
Yeah, Val, what about you?
Netflix.
Oh, sorry, and exactly. Val, what about you, Val? They pull up, they take a jar out of their they're driving like a little buggy, and they come in like, Val, serendipity, we want to talk to you about otherworldly travel agents, and you're like, oh wow, it's Netflix. I can tell because the guy has a Netflix tie, and he's like, we want you to be on Netflix, Val. We're going to produce 14 episodes of Otherworldly Travel Agency, and then he takes the jar, he unscrews the top, and he pours out all those pennies. What are you going to do?
That is a good question. I honestly, this probably sounds naive, but I mean, I would be personally honored if I were to be, my series was recognized by someone like Netflix. I mean, I'd have to hear a little bit more of the details, but otherwise, I feel like, I think I'd be like, oh my gosh, Mr. Netflix, is that you? I'm so honored.
Right.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question for both of you since you guys said that. So, how would you feel? Because I feel like a lot of big corporations, what they do when they have a property is they reinterpret it in their own way. So, like, and some anime does this. Some anime will go off sort of based on off of the manga, but it's like almost a completely different story in some cases. So, how would you feel if they took your concept, both of your concepts, and changed the story a bit? They didn't stay true to the manga. How would that make you feel? Like, would you be okay with that? What do you think?
Should I start?
Yeah, you could go first.
All right. I actually really like that. As long as it's clear from the beginning that that's what we're doing, I think it will be really interesting and sort of add something new to see someone else's take on an already existing property, in this case, mine. Uh, I think it can add some value that it's not the same thing they're doing. And that also means that they can't really fuck it up if they're doing their own thing.
For me, sorry, my throat is all phlegmy now. For me, I feel like as long as the nature of the show stays the same, like Otherworldly Travel Agency, has to do with like space and like time and comedy, and if they turn that into like a gritty horror or like
Right.
I wouldn't be the happiest if that were to happen.
I like the way Val described it. She's like, I mean, if they were like, make my comedy show into a horror, I mean, I wouldn't be happy with it. But then I would remember that some of those pennies falling from the jar were quarters, and I'd be like,
Exactly.
Yo, I want to rock that penny jar. I think, for first of all, I mean, I would say, obviously, Saturday, and we're talking to some companies about our brand and about obviously some of our series. And what I would say is that, my thing has always been to White Manga and some of our folks. I've always, told them my strategy is always that at the end of the day, I want to make sure that we're in control. That's the bottom line. The graphic novel deal that we brokered recently, is about that. We had several offers from companies, and we chose the company that we felt the strongest with, that we felt like really appreciated us, and was going to let us, run as far as we could in the direction that we felt was most appropriate. And I think that with animation, I feel the same way. I think that, first of all, I think that there's nothing wrong with adaptation. That's why it's called an adaptation. It's not an anime version. It's an anime adaptation of the manga. So in essence, it's based on the work, but does it change a little bit to be more acceptable to the complications that arise when you try to watch something, on TV? You want to see it, you want it to feel right. And so, you change it to just, it's a different medium. And I think that's perfectly fine. I think that's okay. I don't really think there's anything wrong with that. There's some series that were so popular in their altered state that they then went and did a version that was more accurate to the manga, stuff like Full Metal Alchemist.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that, like, to me, all I care about is that we have control. And so for control for us would mean that I want to make sure that the animations have a good budget, that they're working with studios that make good product, that they're not, taking shortcuts where we feel like, they're dipping into the quality of the look and feel of the anime, that that they have a real team behind the voice acting and the scripting, so that the scripts actually, come from people who understand, how to tell stories in motion. As long as those things were met for the most part, I would feel pretty good. What I will say is that at this point, I don't think that any streaming service is better than the other. I've recently been watching Apple TV, the show they have called Severance, and I love it. Peacock, I'm thinking of subscribing to Peacock just because they have MSNBC and I like news. I've watched Paramount Plus, which I think is fine. They've got some great shows on that. I've watched, Amazon Prime, for a few shows and movies. And I've watched, obviously, Netflix, and I watch Disney Plus all the time, and HBO Max. I watch that a lot. So I just think that at the end of the day, any of those companies we'd be happy to be with. I just want to make sure that we have control to make sure that our brand and our creators' intellectual property are not squandered because of poor decision making.
Mm.
So yeah,
like it, Fred.
So all right,
Mm.
thank you. I'm actually only looking at the screen that has the Netflix stuff on it, so I can't see you, Jackie. But I can imagine that after I said all that, your eyebrow peeked up over your sunglasses. You were like it.
Yes.
I like that. Good stuff there, Frederick.
Yes.
Okay.
Bravo.
All right. All right. Well then, let's now talk about WEBTOON. I think forgive me, I don't know who said this, so I apologize in advance. But one of the three of you said that Netflix is kind of doing something that's kind of the future of animation, because they are hiring people and they're trying different things, right? I mean, again, they have different types of animation, stuff like that. And I think that that's obviously the question that's here for WEBTOON. This past week on ICV2, which is the number one website for comic book business information, we were featured on it during Manga Week, which was a big honor. But WEBTOON Week was this week. It's the first time I've ever done WEBTOON Week. And what it is basically is that every day on their website, amongst all the other articles they would normally do, they put a special focus and special interviews and so forth with companies that are doing WEBTOON or scrolling vertical comics or whatever. And they interviewed Archie Comics because they had a comic. Archie, of course, Archie Riverdale. They did a version of one of their characters, Ethel, as a WEBTOON. And so now Archie's going to collect that WEBTOON to a print edition. They did an interview with the Yen Press, which, of course, is a popular manga publisher and distributor here in the United States. They now have announced a new line of comics called, I believe it's called Itse. And it is a line of graphic novels that are completely Korean. So one of the things that we forget sometimes that WEBTOON is a Korean phenomenon that has spread to the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if these are comics in the traditional sense or they're WEBTOONs, but the article was during WEBTOON Week. There's a small publisher named Ablaze who's been popping up in the last year, and they've really made a super push into Korean WEBTOONs. Seven Seas, which is a manga publisher here in the United States, they were interviewed. Rocket Ship Studios, Tom Ackle, who was at our Saturday Con event. He used to be one of the chief people over at WEBTOON back when they launched here in America. He has a studio called Rocket Ship, and he's got some books coming out. You've got WEBTOON Unscrolled, which is the new print edition of WEBTOON. You have Skybound, which is the company that is owned by Robert Kirkman, who is the creator of The Walking Dead. So he has now got a company called Skybound, which produces The Walking Dead and other stuff. And now he's got a new line dedicated to young adult titles and to WEBTOONs. And then, of course, you had Tapas, a gentleman named Alex Carr, who I met when we were talking to the gentleman who joined us for Saturday Con, which is a young man named Min Kuhn. So we have a lot of folks here on the list. And that just tells you, I mean, this is WEBTOON Week, and yet this is what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 8 publishers working on WEBTOON content in print edition. Let's start off first with WEBTOON and just in general and what and what you all make of Webtoon. I'm not talking about Webtoon the company. I mean the Webtoon format, the digital scrolling comics. What do you all make of that? We'll start with well, I'll tell you what, we'll finish with Val because she's had a Webtoon before or has one, but let's go first. Let's start first with Fred, my female Fred counterpart.
Yes, I acknowledge
better looking.
the scroll format.
Yeah, that's definitely
Thank
better
you.
looking.
I love you, Fred.
Thank Love you too, Jacqueline.
Sorry, go ahead.
Now, back to scroll format, right? Like, I get that it's smart, and it's the thing that the kids are into these days because they can do it on their phone.
Mhm.
I feel very old in that context because I prefer the good old fashioned book in print, reading page by page. But I do get that it's smart, and anyone can take the panels of a page and turn it into scroll format. I couldn't because I can't. I don't know how to do it. It seems like it will be a big file, but I don't like reading it myself. I feel like the author sort of gets to decide the flow of the story more than I do. I feel like it's a drag to read through, but it's very smart for the internet and probably the future of comics on the web.
I think before I go to Jackie, I think I would agree with you 100%. And obviously, you're much younger than I am, but I struggle to read webtoons. I have always struggled reading webtoons. It's hard for me to get the sense of. I think what you said was actually quite brilliant. Which by the way is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. And I mean, in no way am I slagging off webtoon. I think it's a wonderful movement. But yeah, I think what you said is really poetic. I mean, it's the artist controlling your engagement with it, as opposed to the material just being there and the audience member having to bring themselves to the content and explore themselves. There were some artists when I was younger who did a really great job of packing the panel with so many details, like, every little thing in someone's room or house that would give you an idea of who that person is. And I feel like with webtoons, that's not really a thing. Like, first of all, they very rarely have backgrounds. They rarely feature a lot of complicated designs. So, you see it and you're like, yeah, minimalism appears to be really what it's about. And therefore they're kind of controlling, the speed and the perspective of where I as a reader go, whereas traditional comics tend to be a bit more artistic. And I say that again politely, where things are presented and then it's kind of up to you what you see in it, how you see it. And so I really like the way you said that. I think that is probably describes me as well. I just have a tough time reading webtoons. I just feel like it's being fed to me, and I want to kind of explore it on my own. But clearly, it does work for young people, as you said. Jackie, as someone who is young, what do you make of webtoons yourself?
Well, I think so. I keep up with one comic on Webtoon. I keep up with Let's Play. I'm
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then I've read a little bit of Lore of Olympus. And I can see why they're popular. But and it's okay. The vertical scroll mat is okay. I'm fine with it. I'm not against it. When I'm on the app and I'm scrolling, like, I'm okay with it. I think the part that kind of gets me is from a creator standpoint. Like, a couple of years ago, I tried posting a comic. I actually did a comic with you guys. Gosh, it was it was a couple years ago for an October issue for Saturday AM. I did like a short comic for you guys, and I tried posting
With the
that.
skull, the skeleton and stuff.
Yeah, the skeleton story. Yeah, I did
Yeah.
that one, and I thought I could just post it on Webtoon for people who wanted to reread it. And I remember I was like struggling with like the formats and stuff because that was really irritating for me. So like I had to keep it at a really small format, and I when I was submitting the pages. So it took me a little bit. It took me a little while. You know, once it was all uploaded, it looked nice to scroll, but it was kind of difficult to upload my pages. Now, I've never seen a comic on Webtoon that tried to capture the manga style. So like most of the comics on Webtoons are in color and they're single panels.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever seen
Sure.
someone try to attempt to put a shonen style comic on Webtoon. So you have different panels, you know, different layouts, and then you try to put it on a vertical format. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Maybe it just doesn't work. Maybe you know, the colored comics, the vertical formatting, you know, that's the bread and butter, so that's what people do. But you know, I'm not against it. I just want to see better content on Webtoon. Like I'm fine with the formats and everything. I just want to see better series cuz I don't really care for a lot of the series. It's you know, it just doesn't interest me. Like I want to see more, maybe more dark stuff, maybe more mystery, because a lot of it is I feel like romance or comedy, you know, or
Yeah.
a play on that. So like I'd like to see, you know, different things, new stuff, you know, ideas that people haven't explored before. Like I remember I saw this one comic on Webtoon. I can't remember the title of it, but I really liked it. It was like there was a lesbian couple and they were involved with this they did kind of, they practiced like dark magic and stuff. They had like a dark magic shop, and they got involved with this murder, this kind of murder mystery. So like I really liked it. The art was it was okay, but I really liked the story, and I want to read more. But it's like things like that, like I think I want to see more. I want to see more of different genres put in and different ideas put in.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think you know, my thing with Webtoon has always been that, and I see this quite a bit, is that, you know, Webtoon has a look, right? It's based on Korean manga, and so it has a look. It has a certain style to it, and you know, some people won't notice it. Some people think it all looks like manga, but I think artists and people who are, you know, really tuned in to the industry, I think you can obviously tell what a Webtoon looks like. And I don't mean just a panel. I mean, just like you can look at a character, you can look at the art, and you can just tell what's Webtoon and what's manga. Because manga tends to be more traditional, American style, meaning that things are, you know, some artists use really heavy lines. There's backgrounds. There's like cinematography and so forth. And Webtoons tend to be a bit flatter, less backgrounds. It's in color, so it kind of hides some of the things that are missing. And provides a lot of dynamism where there might not have been. But for the most part, that's kind of how Webtoons are situated. And yeah, I just think that people, I think it's a very different experience. And I think that, you know, works for some people, doesn't work for others. But Val, having created that content, what do you make of the Webtoon revolution? Do you think it's a revolution? Do you think more and more people are going to turn to it? Because obviously, as has been said earlier, it does seem to be something that kids really enjoy, and women. I mean, they definitely they have grabbed the female market. I think from comics and from manga. But what do you say about all that?
All right, you ready for this dissertation?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, as someone who has actively been on Webtoons, and I actually grew up with the Webtoon format, the webcomic format. I actually didn't know Webtoon was a thing until after high school, because I grew up with Lazin, which is another Korean company that does webcomics. For me, I don't see it necessarily much as a revolution, but another way to consume the comic medium. Like you guys were mentioning, the format is different. Absolutely 100%. The concept, the thought process that you have to go through to create a panel on Webtoon is entirely different than what you would do if you're making a traditional manga spread. Because, like we mentioned, the format's different. It's a scrolling format. And like you guys mentioned, it does... The reader has to rely on what the author is drawing rather than the other way around. Like, you don't get to control which corner of the page you look at first, because there is no corner of the page. It's the top of the screen and the bottom of the screen.
That's right.
And sometimes some artists are able to control your view strategically in a way that's effective. Not all the time, though. Not all the time. I too am a culprit of this, drawing 3 panels in a row that have a gradient instead of a proper background. But like I said, I think it's just another way to consume comics, and obviously with a different medium there's going to be different content for it. And like you mentioned, younger audiences and a female audience have really leaned into this, have really, I wouldn't say dominated the market, rather than like they are the main audience, I feel like.
I think so. And so let me ask this question. Why is that the case? And I asked it to all of you guys. Yes, it's 3 young women. Jackie, you read Let's Play, which is a female type of romance series. So I'm curious, why do you all think women dominate Webtoon type series, whether it's Lezen or Tappy Tunes or Tapas or Webtoons or others? Why do you think the women readership is so high for those platforms?
I don't know if this is it is not, it's an opinion fully 100% when I say this, but I feel like growing up, my experience with comics, whether it was Western comics or manga, was that a female audience was kind of an afterthought, or the people who enjoyed said comics would say, "Oh, well, you're a girl, you don't like comics. You're faking it for attention. You're just trying to get a guy's attention." It's like, okay, well, I'm going to go find something else then and find my own community of content that I enjoy and feel safe expressing my interest in.
I agree 100%. I do think that's really what it is. But what about you, Fred? What do you make?
I would also say, kind of in the same vein, that there's a lot more diversity in terms of the kind of stories you can tell when you don't have an editor or something like that to worry about. I think maybe there are just more women who can create the kind of stories they want to see, and that it appeals to other women. It's a little hard for me to figure out, since I'm not that into it myself.
Yeah, no, like I said, me neither. But fair enough. Well, Jack, what about you? Like I said, you read Let's Play. So what's your thought on those?
I would say it's. I mean, I would be willing to bet that the first webtoons that were published on the platform were romance. It was aimed at women, and so I can only assume it became a thing that, here's a site that has a lot of female oriented comics. Okay. And you as a creator, oh, this is a perfect place for my comic, so Webtoons just kind of became a platform for people to post their romance comedy series on, or, whatever it is. So, future creators who want to make a comic, they see Webtoons as the ideal place for that sort of audience. So, it's just basically a culmination of people putting the same kind of content or genre on one platform, and then that becoming recognized. Oh, okay, this is the place to do that. I think it's the same for Shonen Jump. Shonen Jump is aimed at boys, aimed at the male audience. Now, I don't know, you know the answer to this, Fred, but Shonen Jump is not known for their female comics. They're shoujo. you know.
Not recently. No, well, not shoujo, no. But I mean, they've had female-led series, but not recently. Not in the past,
Yeah.
10 years or so, 10, 15 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's fair.
So Shonen Jump is a place for boys, or for people who have ideas more catered to boys. That's the ideal place for them. That's the audience for them. So I think it's just not so much it was an intentional thing. It's just something that kind of organically happened, and everyone just kind of culminated in different communities with different kinds of genres. That's what I think. But
Yeah, well, I mean, I like I said, so at the end of the day, does anyone think Webtoon is a future? And that was one that's hard for me. I mean, Fred is much younger than me, but she feels exactly the way I feel. Like there's a magic in the way comics are constructed, and I think Webtoon, again, being very ingenious, or Tapas with the vertical format, while that's very ingenious and works great on cell phones, and everybody in the world has a cell phone. I just feel like there's something, unique about, like just like an audiobook is a really fun experience. It's a unique experience for getting the information that a book has, but also reading the book is a pretty unique experience,
That tactile feel.
Yeah, very tactile feel. And so, I mean, I don't know if it's the future. I'm not sure if I'm willing to go that far just yet, but I do think that young people have certainly embraced it. Now, whether or not they embrace it to the point to where these things become mega hits in book format. And so far, a few of them have. Solo Leveling and Lore Olympus have done very well. But, will that be the case for all these 8 different publishers I just mentioned? That's the question. And likewise, will it ever have the type of success that Naruto, One Piece of their height, Bleach, had? Pardon me. And I don't know if that's the case. I just don't know. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm excited to see more women getting into comics through Webtoons, but I just don't know if it's really something's going to be permanent.
I think that Vel is right, that they are completely different, almost completely different mediums, Webtoons and comics, because reading them is such a different experience.
Absolutely.
So I don't think it's about Webtoons. I don't think Webtoons are going to take over comics. I just think that they're a newer medium.
Exactly.
I agree with that. The only thing I would say to that is that, because I've had this said before to me, and that my comment is always, yes, but the audience is still limited, right? Like, in other words, we're all fighting over the same audience. So it's not like the audience is like, massive for this thing and not for this thing. Like, it's one audience. And so the question is just just like if I ask you guys right now, do you subscribe to a music service? Do you subscribe to a video service like Netflix? Do you still buy comics? Like, I could get a list of things from you that you spend your entertainment dollars on. And then if I said, okay, so now, if this one thing goes away, do you replace it? Do you pay more money to get it back? What do you do? And it's at that point then, right, like you got to choose, because it's the same audience. It's just a question of, what's a threshold for them to choose and no longer do this?
Gotcha.
If they've read a Webtoon online, what is the number? Again, Lore Olympus and Hooky, and there've been a few, but Lore Olympus, Hooky, and I forgot the last one I mentioned. Like those were popular Webtoons, and they've been really popular books. Is that going to be a case for every Webtoon? I doubt it. I doubt it. I think some people will be like, I read it online. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I agree with Fred number 1 that I don't think it's going to overtake the comic industry unless we just suddenly ran out of trees. Because even then we still have online apps like the Shonen Jump app.
So I'm glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that, because that's another thing. So when I met, for those of our fans who watch this and keep track of our social media, we're in negotiations with a company called Media Do out of Japan, and talking to them about being able to go wider with our books and our content. And of course, if you guys don't know, we have a lot of graphic novels coming out.
Yeah, look
man,
at
damn it!
that.
I knew it was gonna happen. Guys. And by the way, today, this Saturday, we were in the United Kingdom. I was there virtually, of course, and so were the creators of these books I'm holding up. And it was really great. The fans were really excited. Some of the books sold out. I won't say which books sold out, but some books sold out, which was really nice. So the fans were really excited, and we got the How to Draw book coming as well here. Whoops, there we go. So so don't forget, folks, to pre-order your copy if you're watching this in America. Pre-order your copy still. It's available July 12th. There'll be Apple Black Volume 1, Sagami Volume 1, Hammer Volume 1, and How to Draw Diverse Manga. And then like a week or two later, Oblivion Rouge Volume 1 comes out. And then we got more books coming out every other month after that. But okay, so that being said, I met with the Japanese a couple weeks ago to discuss, or last week, to discuss, a deal that we're working on for our creators and for the company. And the CEO of the company, wonderful man named Fujita-san, asked me about webtoons, and he asked me, what I thought of webtoons. And the thing that I keep telling people is, I'm like, I don't know if webtoon is for real or not. Clearly, young people are watching it, but again, the question is, which young people? Is it just young women? They seem to do very well as well with the LGBTQ community. Is it just LGBTQ kids? How many kids are checking it out? And the thing we talk about digital, because I do think digital is the future. Obviously, Saturday M began as a digital product. We have an app, for God's sake, where we put our magazine and so forth in there. But I think, and people forget, in Japan, right now, the biggest series, or some of the biggest series, are coming from an online-only portal called Shonen Jump Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Kaiju number 8, Spy Family, which is probably the biggest hit right now in anime and manga, Spy Family. And these are series that are coming from online. They're not in a magazine. They're on the web, very similar to what Val just mentioned. For those of us in the West, we get the Shonen Jump app. Mm-hmm. And so I raised that because these are traditional-looking comics, aka manga. They're not done in the webtoon format, and they're destroying it right now. Mm-hmm. They're super popular. So I still really don't know if webtoon is the future, because Shonen Jump basically just went to do what they do online, and all of a sudden they're having greater success with their properties from that than they are even in the traditional print manga. I mean, Spy Family is like crushing everything right now. So like I said, I just wanted to throw that out there because I think sometimes we forget that there is an online comic book experience. We do it, Shonen Jump does it, which is still the traditional format. It's just online because, yes, I agree, paper costs are going to get more and more expensive. Shipping, gas is expensive right now. So if you got to ship stuff, it's more and more expensive, and that cost gets passed to the consumer. Just think like this. A couple of years ago, you could buy, a Shonen Jump manga, and the average price was $6.99, $7.99. Our books, like this copy of Sagami here, and Oblivion Rouge right here, these are selling for $13.99 in America. And the competitors I just mentioned, all these other companies I just mentioned, Webtoon Unscrolled, Tapas, Ablaze, their like starting price point, and this is not a negative, but their starting price point is like $17 to $19.99 for a black and white book with about I'm sorry, not a black and white, they're in color, but our stuff is in color too. So for a book about as thick as the books that we're offering, you know what I mean? Like it's like, so print clearly is becoming more expensive. So there's no question stuff's going to go digital. The question is just, is it going to go digital? I mean, like, is the traditional reading format going away because it goes digital? I don't think so. That's not what we do. It's not what Shonen Jump does. Fred has alluded to the fact that she likes that as well. So I do wonder sometimes, how that perception gets made that webtoon is the future, if we're still seeing numbers that point to traditional formats still dominating. But I don't know. Fred, did you have any thoughts on that?
I think from what I can tell. I mean, people are buying books because they know them from online. They read them already and they like them, and so they want to own the book, and they also enjoy reading it as a book more. Like everyone I talked with and heard were here talking in bookstores and said that it's a different experience, uh, and a more comfortable experience. I think have a physical copy of the book and read it as opposed to on the screen. I think.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that's just. I think. I think it's just more made for reading. I think it's more comfortable to the eye.
So, Fred, have you seen? Just real quickly, and again, this is for all of you guys. Have you actually seen the webtoons that have been turned into print?
No, I don't think. I don't remember.
Where do you get them?
Well, Barnes and Nobles and so forth, and here in America, they have like Lore Olympus. Has anyone seen Lore Olympus, the print version of it?
No, I have not.
So the only thing like for me, because I bought it because I was so excited to see this young creator, Rachel Smythe, just killing it. I'm so happy and proud for her to be killing it, and it seems like it's a really cool story. So I bought it, just to show support. But I was curious, right? I'm not going to lie. I was also curious. I'm like, how are they going to take this comic that reads like this and turn it into a traditional format? And I have bought other webtoon books just to see, or webtoon style books, just to get a sense. And the thing that I will say that does surprise me, and this makes it difficult for me, is that obviously these are all panels, and they're not laid out in any particular way because it's not, constructed as a page or drafted as a page. Mm-hmm. So when they bring it to pages, not all, but some have these like gigantic white spaces in between the panels. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's really difficult. It's as difficult as it was reading it scrolling, because I'm like, I this is not drafted in any particular way. So it's just like, here's a block, and then here it's kind of like confetti, it's just like, it's on a page. And it's like, there's not really an order to it. It's kind of like, and it's just all this white space, and the designer in me as well is like, just gets weirded out with all that white space. Lore Olympus, the book is beautiful, really well produced. The paper is gorgeous. Her artwork is amazing. Rachel Smythe's artwork. But they did like, I was just like, man, are they all like this? And some are, quite a few are like that. And so it's interesting because, again, I look at the books and I'm like, even in print format, because I think what Fred's getting to is something I believe very much. And that is that I think that digital is the future. Totally agree. Because I think young people, if you can see my phone here, this is what young people all have around the world. And because they all have a phone, this is an awesome phone. This is an awesome phone. Let me see if I can. I'm going to rip that avatar off. They'll see the real you. No, but everyone has a cell phone, right? And so I get why kids enjoy it, right? You're sitting in line, you're sitting in class, you're sitting at the lunch line, or you're walking to a friend's house, and it's like you pop the phone out and read a quick comic. I totally get it. My belief is that while digital is going to be the future, because young people are going to get older and older, and they're used to reading comics this way, for them it's not weird. And as we die off, they become more dominant, and that becomes the normal way. But I still think that books will exist, because I think that for books right now, it's kind of what Fred's alluding to, especially if you look at Fred's background there. I think books are a status symbol. I think they become a status symbol. I think it's going to be like, you're either someone that's got a book. It's like, oh, he's, they've got money to buy a book. Because again, books are going to become really expensive. Let's just break it down. Books are going to become really expensive. It's very expensive already to find paper. Paper costs keep going up. It's expensive to print this stuff. There's more and more demands for this stuff, so the printing costs are going up. shipping it's expensive, which means the customer has to pay for it. So I think that books are become a status symbol. If you have it, it says more about you than it does about the content, right? It's like, oh, they actually read books. Like, they don't just do it on the phone, which is a cheap way of doing it. They buy the books. Or, as Fred put it, it's a collector's item. Like, you wouldn't do it for every book, but like the series that you really, really, really identify with, like Naruto or Death Note or Lore Olympus, you're going to have those books just because for you, it's a collector item. Like, this is how much I love it. I actually want to have the physical version as well. It's like people who would see a movie back in the day when I was younger, and they would have every version of Star Wars. They'd have the Laserdisc version. They'd have the VHS version. They'd have the Blu-ray version, because they're that type of fan that has to have all of the material to enjoy Star Wars with, whether they still have a Laserdisc player or not. Does that make sense? Does anyone agree with that?
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more when you say that. It's like a trophy almost. When you could say, "Hey guys, check it out! I have every single volume of Naruto." Jealous? Like,
yes,
I completely see that.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, in summary,
and not just that, but like have like the original version, the original print. Sorry,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
But like, if you have the first print version of it, right after they've changed the cover, now there's a new version of Lore Olympus with a different cover. But you had the first print version, like you were the hardcore fan because you were there day one.
Exactly.
Because that's still happening with like some of these series. So sorry, Jack, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. I was just trying to gather my thoughts to just everything that you guys are saying. So basically, print might become a novelty if you own a book. Digital is the future for comics and manga, and anime, that is the holy grail for a successful project. If you can get your series to become an anime, that is the future of anime. That's where anime is going. That's where the TV shows are going. So it sounds like that is what's going to just be the norm for a while until maybe something different happens. I also kind of feel, based on our last roundtable episode, we were talking about the state that manga and anime are in. It's in kind of this lull where companies are looking for the next big thing. They're looking for the next big title, and it's hard to find. It could be just because there's a lack of talent out there. It could be just a lack of good stories, or it could be the companies themselves being too picky, on what series should continue or should not. I don't know. It could be a mix of all that, but sure is to say, Webtoons, Shonen Jump, even the streaming platforms, they're all looking for the next big thing, and all they could do is go with the flow and grab what they can, and produce that and make a profit off of that. But it almost feels like, to me, there's something, in the midst. Something's about to happen with anime and manga. I don't know what it is, but there's something brewing. We're reaching a new era of manga and anime. I don't know what that is, but it is fun to have these conversations and discuss what that could be. But it's definitely going to be really interesting to see what happens within the next couple of years. I'm sure, the whole industry is going to be changing a lot within the next couple of years.
Well, I think the one thing I'll say, so I think that's a great jump start to end this episode on. And I would say that, like, if you look behind me, this will be on the video. I don't know if this will be on the video or not, but look behind me. Obviously, this is the cover to Neo Magazine, which is one of the largest English language manga, Japanese anime magazines, in the West, right? The English language. Been around for 18 plus years, and this is the first time a non-Japanese anime style product has been on the cover, and that's Saturday AM. These are all of our characters: Sano and Clock Striker, Sano from Apple Black, Clock Striker, and Neeli from Master Multiplayer World of Ghosts. And I bring it up because, what people can't see here on this cover is at the bottom it says, it's a Saturday AM, is this the future of manga? Because I think, Jackie, what you just got to is basically, I think, what's happening. I think we are there. I think that essentially what you have is if you look at what I call the 4 stages of manga, you have the original being manga, right? Japanese manga. It's the daddy of everything. It began, you can trace it back to the late 1800s when the printing press and stuff were just getting introduced. But at the end of the day, it became something more prevalent, typical in the 30s, and then of course in the 60s when the big manga magazines launched, Weekly Shonen Magazine, Shonen Sunday, and Shonen Jump actually was the last of the major three to launch. So, but you had that, and that existed in the 60s on and became just hugely popular. People, phase two of manga, the second era of manga, was when that generation of people who saw this content began to get influenced in their own respective countries. Now, obviously, the countries that are closest to Japan would be the countries affected by it. So that's why you have, Japan Comics, which is a big comic book scene in the 80s. You have Hong Kong type comics. You had Korean comics, which was a really big scene. Korean, Filipino comics, they've been really big for decades, 60s and 70s and 80s. And then what people don't know is that for the Korean market, it crashed. Through similar things. There was an issue with paper and all this stuff, and the economy went south, and so they crashed. And Webtoons is the successor of that because, again, the comics market had crashed, but they had a thriving comic book industry, and it just moved to digital. They moved it to digital, and that's why we have Webtoons. The third era of manga is what I call original English language manga. I don't call it that. It's what got pegged for content that was made in America or in English language, but looked like manga. The earliest of this goes back to the 1980s with Reggie Byers and Shuriken, which was a manga about a Japanese assassin. He was a young black man that was working at a comic company called Kamiko, doing Robotech comics, and he then created his own comic book and was a really big success story at the time for having this character. And we've seen strands of that. You've had Joe Madureira. He took manga, made it part of what he was doing in the X-Men back in the 80s and 90s. So yeah, Jim Lee, who did that, Rob Liefeld, who did that. So that has been around since about the 80s, 90s. What we're at today, though, I think is different. And I think that's where this fourth phase is where Saturday M is, because I think what you're seeing now, you're seeing basically what that second phase was. And that is what happens when you take manga and you have people who are not Japanese and not Asian, but that's their primary entertainment source. They grow up. They become artists. They're influenced by that, but they also don't look like that. That's not their culture. And so they want to create their own content. And now you come to what I call the fourth era of manga, which is diverse manga. It's manga that has been inspired, as content's been inspired by manga, but coming from new perspectives of people from all over the world. So you're going to see that as well with Webtoon, right? I mean, look at Webtoon. Webtoon, again, started out as Korean. It's dominant in Korea. They've already had, like we're talking about, shows coming onto Netflix and platforms based on Webtoons. They've been doing that in Korea for years. Like, that's not new to them. It's just new to us. But now what's happening is that you've got Webtoons that are being based on Batman, that are being based on Archie, as I mentioned earlier, that are being based on other ethnicities, other more diversity that are taking the LGBTQ community and bringing obviously a more Western view to it. And now all of a sudden, they're bringing their own diversity to Webtoon. So I just think that diversity is the newest, and that's the future of manga, because you're right. What else is manga going to be? Like, we've seen, even though the Japanese are incredibly creative, and obviously Koreans are incredibly creative, and the Chinese, but we've seen that kind of like, pale, person who might have blonde hair, they might have black hair, but they'll have an Asian name. We've seen that. What we haven't seen is like the character who might be Latino, who might be Indian, who might be black, who might be Arabic, who might be Jewish, but yet they have the same sort of energy and the same sort of character design, and they still have cool concepts to them. So I think the future is diverse manga. I think that is the future. And like you said, anime is what drives it. But I think when you look at what's happening with Webtoon right now, and you look at what's happening with what we do, I think that the future is here. I don't think it's what comes next. I think it's happening right now. That's the future.
The future of anime and manga is here.
Absolutely.
It's a great video title right there.
And folks,
Mhm.
that's right. If you want to create your manga, get our How to Draw a Diverse Manga book from Saturday AM. $24.99, kids. $24.99.
That is a steal. That is a
Yes.
steal considering how much knowledge is in there.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff in here. I know I've got my thing on, but there's a lot of stuff in here. It's 144 pages. It's got artwork in it and tutorials in it from White Manga, Jay Oden, Morgan Walker, Oscar Fong, Asaka Galadima, Venus Bambiza. And what's so great about it is that it covers everything for creating your character. It covers hairstyles. Obviously, one of the hairstyles that typically gets done really strange in manga because afros are not native to Japan, are things like the afro, even buns and different hairstyles from people in the from people in America. We've got that in there. We've got body types in there, including body types that are not the norm. So in Japanese manga, every woman is skinny unless she's like somebody's mama, and we want to make sure that we presented how you could draw attractive, interesting characters who have different body types, because all women are beautiful, all women are gorgeous. We have people who are tall, skinny. We show you what theories are in terms of the theories of creation. So color theory, why some colors really help pop the character design. We talk about semiotics, where if you do certain things, you can take a character and transform them just by giving them certain outfits. So we really get into so much about creating your manga character that it's an incredible product. And if you want to create your own content and add it to WEBTOON or Saturday AM or Tapas or whoever, we'd love for you to check out the book. So that's my little plug for the book.
Awesome.
And if you pre-order now, kids, you can get a pack of trading cards. Really cool trading cards in it. Featuring amazing artwork. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Woo!
Look at that.
Beautiful.
You can get those for free just by pre-ordering. We got to fill out the paperwork, though. Make sure you fill out the survey. But that's it. That's all I got.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm so jealous because you guys over in the UK, you can get all of that right now. You could just walk into your local Waterstones or your local bookstore and you can get the books. You guys in the US, you got to wait a little bit more. I believe it'll all
July
come
12th.
out July 12th. Yes. So just a little bit longer. We can
running to a bookstore.
Yes, smelling those good
I'm going to
books.
clothesline someone. I was like, get out the way. Move. Me first.
We're less than a month away. It's less than a month away. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, well, this has been a really interesting episode. Just talking about the future of anime and manga. Not a lot of people are, thinking about these things. A lot of times we're just consuming everything that's being produced and that's coming out, but taking the time to actually think about, hey, what's really going on? How come we're not seeing so many big hitters anymore? Or, the like, what's going on with WEBTOON. I mean, that's all interesting to talk about. So, thank you guys for hopping on and chilling out. Fred Torniger, Val Sarin Ribity, and our CEO and founder, Frederick Jones. This has been an awesome conversation. And for you guys watching, you can follow us at SaturdayM_AM. We're on Instagram, here on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, the like, and you can follow all of these artists on these social media platforms as well. So we hope you guys join us for our next episode, and we'll see you soon. Take care, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Namaste.